A few words on Stedin. Frauke said it already. Stedin is the third largest DSO in the Netherlands. We operate the gas and electricity network, serve 2.5 million customers, and we are in the southwest of Netherlands located. And we also facilitate the market through a joint venture with other grid operators in the Netherlands through EDSM. Actually, in the next 50 minutes, I would like to touch upon these topics. First, how can digitalization improve key processes of a DSO? It's a little bit where we are today. Then the second question is how... Oh, I hear a lot of echo. The second question is how can DSOs prepare themselves for a seamless interaction with other actors in the ecosystem? We are not alone there. And finally, and I don't know whether there are regulators or policymakers in the audience, and a question I would like to address: how can the rising platform economy, what we see, impact the energy sector? And could or should that require enhanced EU regulation? First, the first question. If you look today, most digitalization still has a strong internal focus. IT supports process automatization, and normally in a lot of companies, IT is still a cost center reporting to a CFO. And typically processes that are being automated are shown here: asset and load monitoring, grid planning, infrastructure operations, and customer and market facilitating, sharing of data. And of course, there's new technology. So new technologies like machine learning, AI, actually that enables the existing processes that we are making more intelligent and more faster and real-time decisions in those processes. But actually, this is where we are today. But if we look to the ecosystem of the future, then we see that the journey towards a future ecosystem really requires for us a strong external focus. It's really the outside in. It's the ecosystem in which we do business transactions with other actors that is being involved. And this really requires clear APIs supporting these transactions with other actors in the ecosystem. And actually, it also means that IT really starts to become seamlessly integrated as a core function in the business itself. It's not a supporting function more, it's part of the business. Then we see the platform economy. I will address that later on the question 3. The new platforms emerging, trying to eliminate friction in the interaction between actors, and also trying to exploit the value of data. And I think all we see in the energy sector with the energy transaction, that also technologies, markets, regulations, those areas are increasingly intertwined. So they are not independent anymore. And finally, as I say here, the speed of change is increasing. This is the portfolio, the cocktail which we have to face today. And for the DSO is the real challenge then also, what will be the position to take in this emerging ecosystem? And that brings me to the second question, how to prepare for such an interaction in the ecosystem. Within Stedin, I think 2 years ago, we asked ourselves, what do we need to do to prepare ourselves for adapting to the outside world? And actually we said there are 2 options. One option is we build a new company, and the other option is that we transform the organization, and actually transform the organization like a big tanker transforming into a fleet of smaller ships, making fast maneuvers. And actually we embarked on this second option. And then first we started to identify what is the core business of a DSO. And we saw 4 elements in the core business, each with their own characteristics, each with their own challenges, and more important, each with their own dynamics, which actually all 4 differ in direction and speed. And these 4 core activities within Stedin, we call them the worlds. I come back to that later. So we started our journey to create a more agile company by creating a loosely coupled ICT landscape through which, via APIs, we interact and between those worlds and interact with the external world. And also, we started the process of reorganizing our business accordingly. 4 worlds supported by a 5th world, being the corporate world, typically containing functions like HR, finance, and logistics. And you might ask, what are these 4 worlds? You see them on the picture here. First world is the world of real-time energy distribution, emerging towards system operation. Monitoring assets and monitoring load flows, very important. The second world is about grid analysis and grid planning, converting CAPEX into grid expansion projects to define the maintenance plan. And the third world is the world where actually the blue-collar workers work around. The only area where still physical activities take place. The other worlds are only worlds in the digital ecosystem. The world where people work on engineering, on construction, on maintenance, and do those physical activities, and also provide grid access services to the end customer. And the last world, the world of customer and markets data management, or market facilitating. And actually the world where we provide markets and customers with data and services. To be clear, the story of creating a loosely coupled landscape with 4 worlds is not about breaking up the company, but it is much more about the company making much more adaptable to cope with fast-changing external environment. So all these worlds have their own direction and speed of change, as I said, and they go different areas. Here you see each world also having their own stakeholders, customer markets, where it's about data management. They interact with customers, of course, and existing market parties, but also with new market parties. There's a lot of startups or aggregators or ESCO come along. But also they interact with government, municipalities, and even with other sectors, as the energy transition will also trigger a lot of cross-sectoral data exchange. On grid analysis and planning, we see also municipalities, regulators, policymakers, and also there other sectors were really in the need of exchanging data with us as a grid operator. Infrastructure operations, the same thing, where we exchange data also with customers, but with contractors, installation companies, or other infrastructure providers like telcos. And last not but least, system operations. Maybe for a DSO, or a distribution system operator, or distribution network operator, still a new type of sport. It's really the interaction with the market, on flexibility, on congestion management, interaction together with the TSO to make sure that we have no harmful interference, and really starting to interact with day ahead and intraday markets. So this is the world in which a DSO in the future will have to exchange data. Then let's talk about exchanging data. When exchanging data, and also taking into account the privacy regulations we see today, then we really should focus on the data exchange layer, which I show here. And that is not a simple data request reply scheme anymore. Currently, in the Netherlands, and that's driven by the implementation of Article 23 of the Clean Energy Package Electricity Directive on data management, we are heavily discussing with the Ministry of Economic Affairs and with the market parties the implementation of what we call an energy data exchange framework, in which we standardize the way how business transactions take place in the ecosystem. And in this way, we really try to make a step towards building a digital economy. Going a little bit more in detail, this energy data exchange framework, first of all, is combined or is defined by a rule book. The requirements, building blocks, which really are needed for good interoperability between all the actors when exchanging data. Then a data exchange layer will also comprise some certain functionality on authentication, authorization, event logging, transaction handling. And finally, a data exchange layer in which also, which is also good governed, where a governance body takes place of this, and with at the same time that this governance body is also facilitating a market facilitating forum, in which all relevant market stakeholders participate. This is the current discussion going on in the Netherlands, and we hope that we will succeed in this, getting this implemented in the national law by next year, and then we will have a foundation, on a general foundation on how we exchange data, not only in the existing energy sector, but also in the ecosystem overall. Here I show you the building blocks of a data exchange framework. Of course, it's about data standards and exchange protocols, but it is also, as I said, on identification, authentication, authorization. It's about metadata, that you can find where is which data stored, operational agreements, legal, governance, and also the financial aspects. These elements have also been identified by the Task Force Smart Grids of the European Commission, EG3, last April, and also on this topic in the magazine Smart Energy International, which is published and is also available here on the conference. You can read about this. So if you see this data exchange framework, then let's back to the interaction with the environment, and then you see the four worlds interacting with the environment. And currently, and this is work which is ongoing as part of the discussion with the ministry on the Dutch law, we are collecting use cases on data exchange with the market and with also stakeholders. And it's going to be a large set of use cases, and we see a lot of new actors coming into place, not only the traditional ones in the energy sector. And when it comes down to exchanging data which is customer specific, and then I mean not open or aggregated data, then it should be clear that the basis for exchanging this data is always either on customer consent or on the basis of a legal binding. Also, if it is exchanged cross-sectoral. Then, talking a little bit about data exchange from a system perspective. I've been working for, 4 or 5 years now in European space, and I think it was 2016 where DSOs and TSOs agreed that we should not talk anymore about transmission grids and distribution grid, but we should talk about the system. And knowing that there is one system, we agreed the principle of one system or integrated system approach. And then it becomes clear that a distribution network operator, which is evolving toward a distribution system operator, in the future will have additional needs for data coming from external sources. And that means that the energy data exchange framework, which I just recently presented, should be reciprocal. Not only that the grid operators provide data to the market, but the market should also provide data to the grid operators on the moment that it is needed for a legal task. And actually, if you start to think about this, then we start to see that the traditional discussion on smart meters and the data before the smart meter or the data after the smart meter really is becoming a little bit irrelevant, because this evolves now in a much more generic concept, and the question is very simple: who has access to which data for which purposes? So we all start to build in this ecosystem a data exchange layer on which we exchange data in a standardized ways. Also, this point has been recognized by the Task Force Smart Grids in EG3, and it recommends that we really should look into the data architecture at the grid edge. That brings me to my third and last question. I don't know how I'm doing in the time. 3 minutes, okay. How could the rising platform economy impact the energy sector? And could it require enhanced EU regulation? Actually, the question is which way Europe wants to go here. And you see here the reference to a book, Platform Revolution. I don't know who of you have read this book, but it is absolutely a must-read book if you really start to understand what's going about Jeffrey Parker and others, they describe the transformation toward a platform economy, also the emergence of new business models and new monopolies in the market. And they also identify both the pros, the good things, better serving customer needs and facilitating economic growth, but they also address the downside effects, not maximizing social welfare for the society as a whole, and also not including the negative externalities in the business case of the platform companies. Jeffrey Parker also listed a complete list of new issues, regulatory issues, which they really say these should be addressed when we want to mitigate these negative effects which were coming from platforms. So this as an introduction brings then to the question, what does that mean for the energy sector? How will the platform economy impact the energy sector? And actually that brings me to a more fundamental question, and actually that's a political question. Do we still see an adequate functioning of the electricity system as a public service, enabling social welfare for all of us? If we say to that question the answer is no, then we should start to accept geographical differences in quality of services, in cost for customers, also on energy distribution. Think on nodal pricing, zonal pricing. In that case, we should also accept that the control of the energy system as a whole is actually starting to be controlled by multiple competing parties in the market. And as a consequence, all the existing unbundling regulation we should be encode, should be clearly be revised. If the answer is yes, then we should confirm, or maybe reconfirm, that the coordination of system operations, and so far we had only one system operation, be the TSO, and now the DSOs are also starting to act on system operation, that the coordination of system operations, by definition, is also a role which is not to be commercialized, and that the corresponding functions should not be part of commercial platforms in the market. And on that point, we should then clarify or enhance EU regulations on the point that the relation becomes clear between the commercial platforms and the regulated system operator platforms. So bringing me to my conclusions, 3 points. As I shown, digitalization will really have a drastic impact, a radical change on DSOs from an external point of view. It's really about implementing a digital mindset and implementing IT competencies in the core business function of the business itself. The second point is, as I said, when we evolve from distribution network operator to distribution system operator, that will lead to more increase on data needs and data exchange. And it is crucial, I think, for DSOs first to recognize what is our core activities, what are our core business there, then create a smartly coupled IT setup or loosely coupled landscape, and finally develop and nurture a data exchange framework which really enables the data transactions with the ecosystem around us. And then the third one, the impact of the emerging platforms, I think will be highly dependent on political and regulatory decisions, and only if those decisions are made well, then this could lead to a future-proof energy system which enables welfare for all of us. Thank you.